I'm your host, Matt Forte, and I'm here live at the Build Studio in New York City. We've got a beautiful day ahead of us, but before we get started, if this is your first time joining us live, I have some exciting news for you. We made a button, says submit a question on it, so you can submit a question. It's on our site, and it's right over there. So go on, give it a press. Or if you're watching literally anywhere else, on anything else in the world, you can hit us up on Twitter at BuildSeriesNYC. Now, if you do a good job, and if time permits, we just might ask a couple of the questions at the end of the show, so fingers crossed. My first guest here today, you may remember from Dancing with the Stars or Duck Dynasty, but she is making a name for herself these days by using her over 5 million cumulative followers on social media to enact some positive change and do some real good. She's also a best-selling author. The highly anticipated follow-up to her 2014 New York Times bestseller is out today, and the follow-up is currently sitting at number 2 on the Amazon overall bestseller in all books list. That's huge. Here to talk to us about Live Fearless, a call to power, passion, and purpose, the great Sadie Robertson is in the house. Now, how about that, guys? We're excited about Sadie, right? That's fantastic. Now, before we bring her out, I believe we have a video we're going to take a quick look at. So, Luke, do me a favor, man. Let's go ahead and run that clip.
I'm like a failure.
How did I not see that?
There's nothing worthy about me. Why would anyone like me?
I have no idea what I'm
a complete failure.
I have no idea
why would anyone like me?
I have no
want them to be
idea
proud of me, but I just can't do anything. I'm a complete failure.
I know what's happening here. I know that these whispers in my ear are just changing my sight to see this false evidence appearing real. But I can't shake it. God, don't you see what surrounds me? War is around me. People are killing people. People hate people. Storms are raging wild, but yet it's really the wounds and the words of my past that are keeping me from wanting to walk into the future. Things are getting scary. But he did not say even if the storm comes. He said even when the storm comes to be still and know that he is God. Because being fearless is not just a breath of freedom. Being fearless is a walk in confidence in freedom, really saving you from the destruction of yourself. You see, we may have to walk through the very thing that we're afraid of in order to experience our breakthrough. No matter who we are, no matter where we come from, or really no matter what fear you're dealing with right now, I just want you to know that freedom is available. Stop praying for your situation to change and start praying for your heart to change. God alone is the silencer of every single fear. You see, I had to take a note from Brother Paul in the book of Acts and become spiritually annoyed with fear. So annoyed that any time a thought of fear would run through my head, I had to say, in the name of Jesus, fear, you have to go, and the fear had to leave. You see, we have a choice every day. We can choose to believe in fear, or we can choose to believe that God is who he says he is. And here's the thing I had to realize about God. God has already considered every single one of my excuses, my thoughts, my feelings, my doubts, and he still says, do not fear. It's time to walk away from fear and walk into the fullness of the destiny God has for you. I didn't write this book, Live Fearless, to tell you about my redemption story, but I wrote this book for you to walk into your redemption story.
Guys, put your hands together. New York Times bestselling author Sadie Robertson, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Oh, this is awesome. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Today is the day, right?
Today is the day. Highly anticipated day, so this is super exciting.
So exciting. Congratulations. I'm super pumped to get into the book and talk about the process and get into that with you. We have plenty of time, but the first question I love to ask and I love to hear is, how are you doing? How are you?
Oh, that's such a great question. I am great right now. I'm just so excited because I don't know, I feel like it's my birthday or something, which I guess is like my book's birthday. But I'm like, I don't know, this book means so much to me because this is such a real, vulnerable topic for me because I did struggle with anxiety and fear for so long. And so for me to come out of that is great. But for me to be able to write a book and hopefully bring other people out of that, it's just awesome. So I'm doing so good.
You know, we were talking backstage. You've done a couple of books already. This is not your first time at the rodeo. You've had a couple books out before. Does this one feel a little different because of the content, because of how you were vulnerable?
Oh, for sure. For sure. The other ones, I love the other books, obviously, because I wrote them and they're super encouraging and great. But this one being such a real topic and something that was honestly kind of hard to walk through, and it was something that I'm not necessarily like proud of. Like, oh yeah, these are all the times that I like panicked, attacked in public. Like, great. No, it's actually embarrassing, but it's super helpful, I think, to people to just be real and to be vulnerable, and that opens up a whole lot of different things.
Talk about that moment where you've put. How long did it take you to write this book, by the way? How long have you been working on it?
How long? Well, my last book
Ballpark.
came out in 2014, so since then, I guess I've been working on the next one. But this one, we pretty much just wrote all summer. This summer, I sat with Beth Clark, who was a co-author, and we literally sat on a porch, like, every day, and we just wrote, and it was awesome.
When you say sat in a porch, I immediately idealize like a nice, beautiful summer day. You said it was the summer. Did you have rocking chairs? Was there like
We
a
did.
nice tea? Was
Yes,
there?
we
Oh,
did. We actually.
that is lovely.
So I live in Nashville, but I'm from Louisiana, so I'm very southern lifestyle. So we sit on the rocking chair on the porch, literally, in a beautiful summer day.
Perfect. That's okay. I'm glad to hear that. That's exactly what I wanted you to say when you said you wrote it on the porch in the summer. Okay, so you put a lot of time into it. You put yourself into this. Now here it is. Today's the day. Have you walked into a store yet and seen like a stack of your books? It's
Not
great.
yet.
Not yet. No, that hasn't
Because I
come
literally
yet.
woke up this morning and was on Fox and Friends and came here. So I'm like, I haven't been able to go to a store, but I cannot wait.
Okay, so we haven't seen it physically in a store, but we have to talk about this. When I was writing my little introduction for you that I said to the camera, at the time that I was writing it, this is just yesterday, the book was at number 10 on all books on Amazon. Number 10
Which
bestseller.
was
all
crazy.
Books. That was it was 24 hours ago. Where is it right now?
Number 2.
Number 2,
It's
ladies and
like,
gentlemen. In one day,
What? That's crazy.
barreling towards number 1. It's gonna happen.
We beat Llama Llama, I Love You. So
And I love Llama Llama. I've never heard. I'm sure it's a wonderful book.
It was funny.
I've never
Everybody
read it.
was like, Llama Llama, I love you's beating you. I was like, Llama Llama, I love you's beating you.
Curse you,
We
llama.
got number 2, so that's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. So number 2, when did you get the news? When did you find out that you were at number 2? Did somebody tell you?
Right
Are you
before.
hitting refresh and checking it yourself?
I have been, no shame. Right before, somebody was like, you're at number 2, and I freaked out. So if I hit number 1, that would, it's just unbelievable. It really is unbelievable.
Well, it's no surprise, too, because if you look, and you've been doing a great job of this, you've always done a great job through social media of staying connected with your fans, and you've been retweeting and reposting a lot of people who were super excited that they pre-ordered the book when it was shipping and all that sort of stuff. So there's been a ton of excitement, a lot of positive buzz. What's it been like sort of going through all that and seeing all your fans super excited? This is on
Well,
play.
it's so exciting and that's why I retweet and that's why I talk to all the fans, because without them buying the book, I mean, that would never happen. It's only because of them. And then 2, it's really not about being number 1 or number 2, but the fact is, having a book like Live Fearless, having a book that's like actually offering people freedom through fear, which is a really heavy thing, and it's a big thing right now. So to have something, a solution, a glimpse of hope, something that will make people smile, something that will offer people freedom, to be like that big on Amazon right now, like people are wanting that, people are craving that. That's what's so awesome. And so yeah, it's super cool to be number 2, but ultimately it's like, look at it big picture. That's that many people who want to live fearless.
What does that number 2 really mean?
Yeah,
when
what
you
does
think
that really
about it? Yeah. Well, you raise a great point, and that is the type of book that this is. And one of the things I was really excited to talk to you about is what the process looked like, the decision-making process to make this type of book. I think what it does brilliantly is that you have like the challenges for people, and then like the words of encouragement, and you even have a section in the back for people to make their own notes and all that sort of stuff. Talk to me about arriving at the decision that that's how this book isn't going to just be a bunch of great stories. It's going to be something that, if applied and if used, can really make you feel happier and do good for you.
For sure. Well, for me, it was so interesting because whenever I was like walking through my biggest, like, I guess, problem with fear and anxiety, it was in like the most public time of my life. It's the Dance with the Stars seasons, and it's the Winter Jam and all these big tours I was on and stuff like that. And that's when I was afraid. And I was more shy, I was more quiet, I don't know, I was more reserved. And so all of a sudden, I'm still in the public life, and in my personal life, I'm like finding freedom from fear. And all of a sudden, I'm a lot more positive, I'm a lot more goofy, I'm all of a sudden confident, and people are like, so what happened? And I'm like, oh, well, I broke through fear. Then people are like, well, how did you do that? And because now I have all these people who've been following me that are still in that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I never wanted to write a book that was just like, here's how I found freedom. It's like, no, here's how you can find freedom. And for me, part of that freedom and part of my journey was actually writing it. Because a lot of times, fear can come at you in a million different ways. And when you find the root of it and why it's attacking you in what way, for me, it was a lot of like control over a situation or And for me, I felt like my life was so out of my control. Whenever fame started happening, Duck Dynasty dancing, I was like, I don't really know what to do, and I don't really know how to be famous, like that
you were
kind of
just
thing.
kind of along for
and
the
I was
ride,
just
yeah.
afraid. And so it's just really cool, I think, for me being able to do that through this process. I wanted people to also have that option, so they kind of can write their story through this story. It's cool.
So that's pretty exciting. So through not only is this book sort of designed to help people go on their own journey, but very much writing this book yourself was a part of your journey, is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I actually didn't expect that. Like, when I started writing the book, I actually had to pretty much rewrite the book by the end of summer. Because I started writing it, and I was like, yeah, this is good, right? Then by the time I'd grown so much from even May to August, by the end of August, I was like, wait, we got to go back and rewrite the chapters we originally wrote because I found so much truth through this process, which was just really cool for me, and that's not what I was expecting. So I think people are going to start reading this book, and they're going to be like, oh, that's good, but when the minute they start writing and they start getting into it, they're going to be like, oh, wow, and they're going to see it for what it is.
That's so cool. So that's why you have all those areas in the back for people to write, so they can go on that exact same journey and do that.
Sometimes when it's on paper, it's like you're hit with the truth. Yeah, you're like when you have to write it, you're like, oh wow, yeah, that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, something comes out that versus just sitting there and reflecting and thinking of that time. But when you actually have to write it out and put pen to paper, you do sort of unlock another part of you that experienced that. Do you remember anything? Because you tell some very vulnerable moments, and you open up about a lot, especially like your freak out when they called you about Dancing with the Stars, and you're like, I don't know how to dance.
Yeah, total freak out. I literally never danced in front of a human in my whole life. Like, it was a little scary to start with 20 million, but
that's a heck of a way to break through fear, right?
Heck of a way.
Because I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Let me try it in front of 20 million people. Yeah. What was something upon reflection that, do you remember like a specific thing of like, oh man, with this perspective, I never realized that before. I never saw that way. Is there one thing specifically that you remember from one of your stories that?
Yeah. There was probably a lot. I think Connect the Dots. There's a chapter called Connect the Dots. That was one of the ones that I was like, whoa, because I had this idea to write this chapter about Connect the Dots because I thought about how, like, you know, the little game of like Connect the Dots, and like whenever you're young, you get like so just like frustrated, or like you're like, okay, I don't really care to finish because it's not really that exciting, and like you can't really even tell what it is sometimes.
Got it. It's like, a Ferris wheel. I'm done. I don't need to finish.
And you're like, can I just like skip this number because like it's really far down? And so you just like kind of do whatever. But I was thinking about how in life it's like with God, if you're a Christian and you believe that God has this bigger plan for you, this bigger purpose, sometimes you can't really see what the full picture is, but you have to go through things that you don't necessarily want to go through. You have to go through times that are really hard or seem to be really long, but it's getting you to the full picture. And so I went back and I literally kind of wrote my story in a Connect the Dots way and was like, oh my gosh, some of these things that were really hard for me to walk through, that I really didn't want to walk through, that were, I don't know, seemed like the pit of fear, are actually the moments that really caused this whole story to be so beautiful. And without this story and without this moment, this book wouldn't happen. These people who are about to find freedom wouldn't come to it. And so for me, writing out that and just seeing the bigger picture and being like, you know what, some of these hard things in life, I'm actually really thankful for it, because I would have not grown in this much confidence, this much freedom, or this much joy in times that maybe it didn't look like I should have it, but I do. And it's because you have to see it for the big picture and what it really is.
In looking back and reflecting on all these things, you also mentioned in the book that you literally grew up in a constant state of fear, like, and you didn't realize it until like you really started analyzing and looking back. Mm-hmm. Do you have like an earliest memory of being afraid of something, or what it was that you were afraid of when you were so little? Yeah, for sure. I wrote about storms a lot. Storms, for sure. In the book. But for me, I actually remember the first time that like fear entered my mind. Is so weird. Like, I don't even know how I remember that, but I actually have found that a lot of people who do struggle with fear, or who struggle with really anything, you can ask yourself, okay, what's the root of that? Where did that come from? And you can always go back to the place. For me, I remember one night, because we live in Louisiana, and like, I don't know, we live on like a lot of land, so it was kind of out in the country. So we never lock our doors, like for the most part, used to. Now we lock our doors, webcam. Like we used to not lock our doors. It was just pretty open. And one night, my grandma was staying at my grandma's house. She said, we got to go lock the doors. And I said, why? She said, well, because like you don't want somebody to come in the middle of the night. And I was like, why would somebody come in the middle of the night? Like, who would come in the middle of the night? And she told me, like, sometimes, bad things happen. And immediately I was just like, and all of a sudden now I'm afraid of the night. And I'm afraid somebody's going to come in the night. And it's like all of a sudden, because for me, it was anything that could happen, I would like
naturally go to that. Like I would just assume that's going to happen. And so I kind of wrote in the book, one of my favorite chapters is it's not that things aren't scary. It's not that things aren't scary, and there's not that bad things could happen. Bad things can happen, and they do happen, and they will happen. But there are so many scriptures, and for me, where I found what I'm rooted in is my faith, Psalms 46, even when those things happen, that's when you be still and you choose to trust God and know that he is good. So that's just what I did.
That's how you did it. You said you went back and rewrote some of the book because upon reflection and all that. Was the breakdown of plankton something that took you several times, or have you always carried that with you? Because I thought that part was great.
Oh my goodness, the breakdown of the plankton. Okay.
I thought that was great.
Thank you so much. That was a hilarious thing how that all happened. It literally randomly came about one day when my dad. Every time something like bad happens in our life, like my dad would be like, well, at least you're not this guy. And he would like send us like a goofy picture of somebody like doing something that's really not that bad. And so it was just kind of his joke.
Classic
And
dad
it was like a dad joke. And I would always be like, ha ha ha, that's really not funny. Nor does it help. And so one time he was like, well, at least you're not that guy. And I was like, yeah, thanks, Dad. At least I'm not. And then I was like, and at least I'm not a plankton either. And he was like, at least you're not a huh? And I was like, at least I'm not a plankton. I was like, I don't even know why I said that. And Dad was like, that was weird. I was like, I know. I don't know why I said that. Well, then it like somehow I was like, what is a plankton? And I went on that whole journey.
Yeah,
and it was like literally
ride.
just went whoo. And it was crazy. But it taught me so much. But yeah, that chapter took me the longest to write because I am like not very like book smart. And I had to like learn all this like scientific facts about a plankton. But it worked out.
It's pretty amazing.
It's kind of worked out.
It's a great part of the book. No, just because it starts off exactly like that. It's like this little throwaway comment in the car, and then it becomes this much bigger like metaphor and this bigger story, and it's like, man, this is pretty cool. It's pretty deep. It got real deep real fast. It gets
really deep really fast, but it makes sense because the thing is, so many people, especially my age, they like freak out about what their purpose is, and they're like, I just don't know what my purpose is. I don't really think that I have anything, and I'm just like, so when I said that about a plankton, I was like, you know what? If I can find purpose in a plankton, I bet I can find purpose in anyone. So I found the purpose of a plankton. The purpose of a plankton literally provides 50% of oxygen we breathe. Might not have known that, but that's what a plankton does. And isn't that awesome that if God can put purpose in a plankton, he can put purpose in your life, and you just have to look for it.
It's the old purpose in a plankton trick. Yeah.
The whole purpose of a plankton. I know one day I'm going to be a mom and be like, if God can put purpose in a plankton.
They're going to be at school. Mom's always talking about plankton, man. I don't watching SpongeBob or something. So
that's the thing.
I want to ask you about, all right, so you went on you had a tour surrounding your last book, right? And as I imagine, going out doing these speaking engagements and connecting with your fans, a lot of fans, especially the nature of sort of your personality, kind of like the big sister that's there to guide you kind of personality. They come up to you, they tell you their stories, they share their struggles with you. Yeah. I assume, is there a tour surrounding Live Fearless as well? Are you going out there to meet fans and connect? Yeah.
So Live Original is a tour I started 2 years ago. We've done 2 now, 16 cities both years, and this year we're doing Live Original again, but we're doing 20 cities, and so super excited about that. But it'll always be called Live Original, but it'll be different different themes, I guess. So this year, who knows, probably be Live Fearless. But yeah, I guess it should be. Safe bet, yeah. No, yeah, but it's super exciting, and that's really cool. That's my favorite thing to do, is go out on tour, because I get to meet the people who are influenced by the books and who are influenced by the messages I post online, and they do tell me their story, and they're very open and vulnerable. And that's the thing for me, like I said, I don't really like to consider myself famous or celebrity because it makes me feel like kind of weird, but I love to think of myself as to be a sister or a friend to these people. So for me, the more I can go out and actually meet and actually talk and encourage, like that's where I find my purpose, and it's just like really cool.
Well, it is really cool, and I do love that you do these tours and you find joy in that, and it extends to all areas of what you do and what you apply yourself to. I mean, like, tell us about One Squad.
Oh, yeah, One Squad.
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
I love to talk about One Squad. One Squad is something that I started, I guess, 2 years ago. And basically, it's a group of young people who pay $40 a month. And these $40 a month go to literally countries all around the world. So right now, we're in Uganda, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Dominican Republic, Haiti. We built schools. We've sponsored kids, gotten kids into adopted homes, which is just really amazing. And it's really cool just to see what we do is we've come behind local leaders. Instead of just doing child sponsorship or just doing water or just doing schools, we come in, we meet with local leaders, and we say, what do you need? And then whatever they need need in that country, we're able to provide that from what people give. So it's just, I mean, it's amazing. It's just, come on, God, like what? It's awesome.
It was really cool looking at all the work that you guys were doing, and I was just really blown away because it isn't, for you, you're right, it's not about celebrity, it's not about the 5 million followers, it's about what you can do with that platform and what you can do with your voice. And I think you're doing a lot of great things, and you're doing a lot of good. Thank you for that. We got to turn it over to audience Q&A. We're going to do that in a second, but I do want to remind people, Live Fearless right now. It's at number 2. Let's get it to number 1, all right?
Number 1.
I'm looking at you, Internet. Let's get it to number 1. And one more time, thank you so much for being here. So let's go to the audience stuff. Let's get some questions. First one's going to be right over here.
Yeah.
Hi, so our first question is coming from an online viewer. Dahlia wants to know, what was a bigger challenge, writing a book or performing on Dancing with the Stars?
Oh, shoot. I'm going to say performing on Dance with the Stars because you can write a book in your private space in your home. And so it's not that scary.
Next book you're going to write in front of a crowd of 22,000 million people. That's what we're going to do.
Live fearless. Live fearless.
That's it. Thank you for that question. Next one's coming from here.
Hey, so while writing this book, was it easy for you to write the book, or did you have like numerous times that you had like writer's block?
It was easy as far as writer's block. That didn't happen because there was like so much. I think it was hard to navigate. What does the world really need right now? You know, like don't just put like what you want to put, like put what people really need to read. And so it was like navigating what's to go in this book and then what's to save for maybe a later book or something.
Was there stuff, because the book flies by, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a good way, like it's like the perfect like length. Was there stuff you wrote down that you wanted to include, but you were like, you know what, that doesn't fit here, let's pull that out, I'll save that for a later project?
For sure. Yeah. Totally saved a lot of it. But I'm actually glad to hear you say that because I used to I'm not a reader at all. Like, oh my gosh, it took me like a year to read a book sometimes. But the cool thing is I was like, I want to write a book to people who can read it easily, who like maybe they don't like reading, but they need to learn how to live fearless. So I'm like, I love that you said that.
No, for sure. You did a great job. For someone who can't read, you sure can write a book, all right?
Hey, listen. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, we have time for how many more? One more? We're going to take one more question. It comes from right over here.
Yes,
Hi, how are you? So when you're facing fear and maybe overcoming that fear, has it made it easier for you to face the same fears over again?
Yeah, something so cool about just fear in general and just what it means to live fearless is used to, I think I had this concept that like living fearless and being fearless was like an absence of fear, which is like totally not the case. Being fearless and living fearless is actually like when you're in the face of fear or when you're in a moment where fear seems to strike up, that's when you have peace. And I've found that every single time where fear is also where fear is conquered. And so the more you walk in and the more you conquer it and the more you defeat it, the more confidence you have and the freedom over it. So that has been huge for me. So it does get easier because you get more confident in the times that you've defeated it, but it takes defeating it. It takes walking into it. Cool question.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for the questions. Thanks for the online question. I got to let you go. You got a million other things you got to do to talk here. But before you do, I think you sell yourself short. You tell yourself that you can't read, you can't get through a book, and you say that you're not book smart and all this stuff, but you can write a hell of a book. You're doing amazing things all over the world. You're inspiring millions of people, and you're doing a lot of great work, and I'm so glad that we got to hang out and talk for a little bit. So thank you for being here. Everybody, Live Fearless. It's out now. Number 1, we're coming. Please make some noise for Sadie over here. Come on, guys, put your hands together one more time.